My name is อาจารย์สุตราพร ตันตินิรนาถ and I will be your English MC and moderator for today.
สวัสดีค่ะแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านยินดีต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่งานประชุมวิชาการมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์ระดับนานาชาติครั้งที่ 14 และระดับชาติครั้งที่ 1 วันนี้เป็นวันที่ 2 แล้วนะคะซึ่งจัดขึ้นโดยคณะมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยบูรพาร่วมกับสำนักหอสมุดมหาวิทยาลัยบูรพาคณะมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยสงขลานครินทร์วิทยาเขตปัตตานีคณะมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยมหาสารคามคณะมนุษยศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยรามคำแหงคณะ Interpretation and Translation มหาวิทยาลัยฮันกุกสาธารณรัฐเกาหลีดิฉันอาจารย์พันธิราชกุลนิลกรับหน้าที่ผู้ดำเนินรายการภาคภาษาไทยในวันนี้ค่ะ
Right, and this conference was built upon the complexities of technological and other disruptions in every aspect of our society. We see that it is imperative for humanities and social sciences scholars to demonstrate our value in creating and maintaining an advanced society. HUSO BUU envisions opportunities for the humanities and social sciences in this dynamic world. For the past 14 years, we have hosted national conferences, but in this year, 2021, we and our partners are expanding our horizon by inviting international researchers, scholars, and graduate students to our national and international conference entitled Challenges of Humanities and Social Sciences in Digitalization, Flourish or Perish
อย่างที่ทุกท่านทราบกันดีค่ะว่าเทคโนโลยีนะคะได้เข้ามามีบทบาทและส่งผลกระทบต่อสังคมในหลากหลายมิติค่ะจึงเป็นความท้าทายนะคะของงานวิจัยทางด้านมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์ที่จะร่วมแก้ปัญหาแล้วก็สร้างสังคมที่มีคุณภาพรวมถึงความสุขสำหรับผู้คนค่ะจากการเปลี่ยนแปลงของสังคมอย่างรวดเร็วนี้เองนะคะเราจึงได้ดำเนินการจัดการประชุมวิชาการระดับชาติมาอย่างต่อเนื่องเป็นปีที่ 14 แล้วค่ะและในครั้งนี้นะคะพิเศษกว่าที่เคยเป็นมาคือเราได้เปิดโอกาสสู่ความเป็นสากลนะคะด้วยการจัดการประชุมวิชาการระดับนานาชาติครั้งที่ 1 ควบคู่กันไปค่ะด้วยตระหนักว่าเราจะเป็นส่วนหนึ่งนะคะที่จะกระตุ้นให้นักวิชาการได้สร้างสรรค์ผลงานเพื่อสนองตอบต่อความต้องการของสังคมและหวังด้วยค่ะว่าเป็นการสร้างพื้นที่ในการแลกเปลี่ยนองค์ความรู้นะคะและประสบการณ์ระหว่างนักวิจัยคณาจารย์นิสิตนักศึกษาและผู้สนใจทั่วไปค่ะโดยในปีนี้ค่ะเรามาในหัวข้อความท้าทายทางมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์ในยุคดิจิทัลเฟื่องฟูหรือถดถอยค่ะ
And now here's the general schedule for today. We have the third keynote speech by Mr. David Norcross from 10 to 9 a.m. And after that, we will have concurrent paper presentations from about 10:20 to around 2 p.m. this afternoon. And we will finish off our conference with a special workshop delivered by our Dr. Brooke Hessler.
ค่ะสำหรับกำหนดการในวันนี้นะคะเราจะได้รับฟังปาฐกถาพิเศษจาก Keynote Speaker ท่านที่ 3 ของเรานะคะคุณเดวิดนอร์ครอสค่ะท่านเป็น Founder และ CEO นะคะของ Lexicon ประเทศไทยค่ะนะคะต่อจากนั้นค่ะเราจะพักกันสักเล็กน้อยนะคะก่อนที่ทุกท่านจะได้เข้าร่วมการนำเสนอผลงานวิจัยห้องย่อยค่ะตั้งแต่เวลาประมาณนะคะ 10:20 น.เรื่อยไปจนถึงเวลาประมาณ 14 นาฬิกาและหลังจากนั้นค่ะจะเป็น Special Workshop นะคะจาก Keynote Speaker อีกท่านหนึ่งที่ได้เจอกันในเมื่อวานแล้วนะคะก็คือดร. Brooke Hessler ค่ะในหัวข้อการสอนและการเรียนรู้ด้วย Mobile Technology ค่ะ
Right, and before we begin, let us introduce you to our Burapha University and Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences through video presentations.
และในลำดับต่อไปค่ะขอเชิญทุกท่าน พบกับวิดีโอแนะนำมหาวิทยาลัยบูรพาและแนะนำคณะมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยบูรพาขอเชิญรับชมค่ะ
5 4 3 2 1
Burapha University is the University of the East. Since its establishment in Chonburi Province in 1955, almost 7 decades, this ideal university has been committed to generating qualified intellectual and moral graduates following its initial vision. During the old days, it provided educational opportunities and equality to students in eastern Thailand. Until now, Burapha University has continually developed quality in its education, establishing 2 more campuses, Sakeo and Jantaburi, in order to expand its comprehensive knowledge to truly cover Eastern Thailand and make its knowledge accessible for the people. The shared goal of the executives and staff brings together collaborations from all sides, making Burapha University proudly become a hub of wisdom and knowledge of the East. Nowadays, the university has integrated modern curriculum with world-class education. Its 23 faculties, 4 colleges, and 1 project establishing are aimed at generating intellectual graduates with skill sets, highlighting its ambitious goal. To become wisdom of the East for the future of the nation. To achieve its major goal in the 7th decade, Burapha University divides its curriculum into 3 groups, namely 1. Sciences and Technologies, to enhance the university's research strengths and academic services. 2. Health Sciences, to respond to the need of health services and enhance elderly care and professional education. 3. Humanities and Social Sciences, to strengthen the philosophy of education in liberal arts, which generate graduates through academic and social trainings. Besides its intensive programs, Burapha University offers a range of facilities and support to students, such as internal transportation, computer center, central library, hotel and dormitory, information and communication system. Burapha University is also distinguished in its location, which is not far from Bang San Beach, a popular tourist attraction in Chonburi Province. Moreover, it can easily access information sources on trade, industries, and commerce on various agricultural industries, Its short distance of only 60 kilometers from Suvarnabhumi Airport is also an advantage. To be aligned with the planned strategies, every professor and student of Burapha University is determined to continually conduct researches. Nowadays, the university's researches are widely recognized by the academic world, winning both national and international awards. Another notable role of Burapha University is a provider of academic services to communities, being a knowledge hub of the east of the country. For example, its Marine Sciences Museum is both a museum and a learning center for communities. Burapha Hospital provides healthcare service and elderly care support. Trade, agriculture, technology, and logistics sciences are among important knowledge to the region's industrial sector. At present, Burapha University is still committed to being a wisdom and quality educational institute as the first public university in the east of Thailand and moving forward, following its determination to become wisdom of the east for the future of the nation.
What do you see in Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences? We see the integration of disciplines moving forward to an international platform. We see a long history that paves its way to future planning. We see the management of data that creates possibilities. We see actions in a digital society. We see a strong determination to develop sustainable communities. We see a high quality of natural resource management. We see thinkers who never stop their creativity for communication. We see the importance of languages that connects the world. We see the value of being multicultural. We see the readiness in responding to Eastern Economic Corridor. And we see ourselves creating the future of our society.
And now we are ready for our third keynote address of our conference by Mr. David Norcross on the title Digitalizing Ethnography: How Storytelling from the Humanities and Social Sciences Can Shape a Digital World. Before we begin, let me tell you a little bit about our keynote for today. Mr. David Norcross is CEO and founder of Lexicon, Thailand's #1 digital storytelling agency. Originally from the UK, David has a long academic history with the humanities and social sciences, with degrees in English literature, social sciences, linguistics, and postgraduate research in anthropology.
ค่ะ ได้เวลาแล้วนะคะที่เราจะได้พบกับ keynote speaker ของเราในวันนี้นะคะคุณเดวิดนอร์ครอสค่ะวันนี้ค่ะท่านมาในหัวข้อ Digitalizing Ethnography: How Storytelling from the Humanities and Social Sciences Can Shape a Digital World ค่ะคุณเดวิดนอร์ครอสนะคะท่านเป็น CEO และผู้ก่อตั้งบริษัท Lexicon ประเทศไทยซึ่งเป็นบริษัทตัวแทนด้าน Digital Storytelling อันดับหนึ่งของประเทศไทยค่ะคุณเดวิดเป็นชาวสหราชอาณาจักรนะคะที่มีปริญญาทางมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์โดยจบการศึกษาด้านวรรณคดีอังกฤษ สังคมศาสตร์ภาษาศาสตร์และการวิจัยด้านมนุษยวิทยาค่ะขอเชิญทุกท่านรับฟังปาฐกถาพิเศษจากคุณเดวิดนอร์ครอสนะคะโดยท่านสามารถที่จะดูบทแปลร่วมไปด้วยได้เลยนะคะในช่องแชทบ็อกซ์ของ Zoom เราค่ะ
Right, and to accommodate everyone in this national and international conference, we have provided the Thai translation, which you can find it in the chat box. And now, Kun David, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Just let me share my screen. Hello, everybody. Thank you to Borough University for the kind introduction and for the opportunity to speak with you all here today on the challenges of humanities and social sciences and if they will flourish or perish in the digital age. I work in marketing, so before engaging with any project, I try to get a good sense of the audience I'm speaking to, their pain points, and the big idea behind whatever content campaign I am creating. Accordingly, when I was invited to talk to you all today, I wanted to speak with the Borough team to try to understand why this event is being framed as an existential moment for the humanities and social sciences. The answer I was given was very interesting. It seems that Borough University is playing a big role in the development of the Eastern Economic Corridor Initiative, which is very good news in both funding and prestige terms. However, unfortunately, it seems that the majority of the funding for these projects at the moment is being allocated primarily to the science and technology faculties. I guess this makes sense, as there are a lot of big infrastructure development projects happening, which would explain why science and tech need to be involved so much in these preliminary stages of the EEC. But I'm here today to tell you that the humanities and the social sciences have the potential to play a very important role in the future, both in the EEC and beyond. If you are able to tell the right stories to the right audience, you'll be able to succeed. But first of all, please allow me to tell you why I feel I'm qualified to discuss this topic with you here today. At one point in my life, I was on a very different trajectory, and I was all set for a career in academia. All of my qualifications are from this world: English literature, social sciences, education, and linguistics. They gave me a passion for storytelling and trying to understand society and our place within it. I also spent a few years on a PhD studying the concept of Thainess, or in Thai, Kwam Ben Thai. At that time, it seemed like my destiny was to become a professor. Yet the PhD was derailed by complications in transferring my scholarship from the UK to Australia, as well as political problems here in Thailand around that time. For my PhD, I spent a lot of time in many locations around Thailand doing research, asking questions, and reading all I could find about Thainess in published literature and academic research, as well as reading seminal works from key figures in the social sciences, from Foucault to Bourdieu, from Chomsky to Piaget. I very much enjoyed the more than 10 years I spent studying in the humanities and the social sciences, especially the research writing and peer validation. However, I'm here to tell you today that peer validation is not enough. Too often, social sciences and humanities within academia are insular, engaging in a form of circular self-gratification. To give you an example of this trend that really sticks in my mind, a book like Pierre Bourdieu's Distinction is the ultimate example to me of this overly complicated, thick, heavy book that's written in an impenetrable register. The whole message of this book, essentially, is that your taste, your social habits are defined by your economic position and your access to privilege. While this is undeniably true, the way the book presents the argument ensures that the average person has never heard of Pierre Bourdieu, and if they were ever to open up his book, they would be immediately scared away by the overly dense, uber-academic nature of what is essentially a universal truth that everybody would agree with. To some degree, this book, written decades ago, speaks to academia in the pre-digital age. But for you to resonate today, a very different approach is needed. For me, my academic career came to an end in 2014, and I found myself with a lot of time and mental energy on my hands. Where was I to go after the humanities? I'd been working as a writer and as a journalist to support myself during my PhD, so I decided to try to monetize those skills by applying them to the newly developed world of digital marketing. I formed my own company in 2015 called Lexicon. And over the years, we have grown quickly from just me to a company of over 50 people, offering video production, creative design, marketing strategy, social media, and of course, content writing. While these services, on first glance, may appear to be unrelated, they are actually all connected by one key concept, which is storytelling. Allow me to show you a little bit more of what we do.
Lexicon is Thailand's leading digital agency. Operating out of 600 square meters of creative space in Ceylon, we use brand storytelling to connect clients with their ideal target audience online. We create everything in-house, from video production in our own studio and on location, to digital strategy, social media, creative design, executive branding, and web development. Lexicon tells the story of many of Thailand's leading companies. We use cutting-edge project management tools to ensure seamless collaboration between all team members and departments. As our client, you'll have an entire team of Lexicon's talented storytellers working for you. But you will only deal with a single, friendly, and knowledgeable account manager who will ensure that every project meets or exceeds your expectations. So, what are you waiting for? Start telling your story and engaging with your target audience today.
So Lexicon has used storytelling to grow from one person to over 50, and we've had success working with many different types of clients, speaking to many different types of audiences. I'm here today to tell you that the humanities and social sciences are perfectly positioned to thrive in the digital age by using storytelling. But first, please allow me to define storytelling for you and unpack it as a concept. In Jonathan Gottschall's book, The Storytelling Animal, he redefines Homo sapiens as the storytelling animal. He explains how everything humans do is a form of storytelling. From our concepts of nations and religions relying on narrative, a linear form with clear heroes and villains, through to how we gossip and make sense of our own personal histories through stories. Even how we reorganize the events of our lives through narrative as we dream. Given that stories are hardwired into the human experience, they have proven time and again to be the best way to resonate with people of all social and national backgrounds. Stories circumvent logic, and they tap into our primal instincts of curiosity, fear, love, and empathy. And who better to tell stories than you guys, the humanities and the social sciences? You have a deep understanding of how humans are really behaving, and also what motivates them in every era. In another book, The 7 Basic Plots, Christopher Booker explains how all stories throughout human history follow one of 7 basic plots. These basic plots cover ancient myths from all nations, cultures, and languages through recorded history. The same basic plots our species were using 3,000 years ago are still being used today. For example, the rags to riches plot archetype encapsulates stories like Cinderella, Dick Whittington, as well as Pretty Woman, as well as The Ugly Duckling, and thousands more familiar stories. In the same way, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey monomyth lays the foundation for almost every adventure story ever told, from the enlightenment of the Buddha to the Odyssey, through to Gilgamesh, Beowulf, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, The Hunger Games, the list goes on. The structure of all of these stories is that a hero with a normal life meets a guide, goes on a journey, faces temptation and challenges, overcomes them, defeats a literal or metaphorical monster, and returns home as a hero with a new equilibrium. The 7 basic plots and hero's journey structures are so universal that we barely even notice them underpinning so many of the classic stories we know by heart. But that storytelling structure is always there. It's built into the DNA of a 3-act structure in the same way that the introduction, body, and conclusion form the 3-act structure of an academic essay. It was my time studying in the humanities and the social sciences that gave me my passion for trying to understand how humans behave in society, as well as for trying to engage them through narrative. And at Lexicon, I have tried to combine this passion for storytelling with a modified version of the hero's journey. In all of the creative work Lexicon does for our clients and for ourselves, we use this formula. This enables us to effectively connect with our target audience and ensures that we can help our clients to do the same. This 7-step process starts by identifying the hero. What is important for you to understand here today is that you are not the hero. Social sciences and the humanities are not the hero. Your audience is the hero. In marketing terms, the hero is the buyer persona. In order to tell the right story to the hero, we need to think about their demographics, their age, nationality, location, interests, as well as their pain points, concerns, and needs, and what questions they have about what you do, and any doubts they may have. We need to address these in our stories. In classical storytelling, the hero at the start of the journey is naive. They don't yet know they are about to go on a journey. They often don't even know they have a problem. Think of Luke Skywalker at the start of Star Wars for a classic example of such a hero. The next part is where you come in. You are the guide. The guide is the most important character in the story. They are the person that helps the hero to self-actualize by calling them to action, helping them to fulfill their potential. The guide has authority from having been on this journey many times before, and the guide has overcome all of the challenges that the hero is yet to face. But most importantly of all, the guide has empathy. They know how to communicate with the hero in language the hero can understand. Classic guides include Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars, Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, the genie from Aladdin, Hamish from the Hunger Games, and perhaps even me today. But all joking aside, the humanities and social sciences have all the authority in the world. Through the data you gather from your ethnographic research, groundbreaking theories, and millions of weird and wonderful PhD topics from all over the world, ranging from the impact of soap operas on housewives to the effect of economic expansion on traditional communities. What is all too often lacking is your hero. So within the humanities and social sciences, we find ourselves speaking to ourselves very often. But if we want to have a broad appeal and thrive, we need to identify our target audience beyond our comfort zone so that we can craft stories that resonate more broadly. The remaining 4 steps of the Lexicon 7-step formula are about calling the hero to action, getting them to take action. So these actions may mean donating to a charity through a website. They may be engaging with a luxury car brand through Facebook. Whatever it is, the process works for all industries and with all audiences, as it puts the consumer at the center of the story. So think about this. What action do you want your hero to take? If we look around the world, we can see many successful examples of people from the humanities and the social sciences applying academic theories through popular media. Malcolm Gladwell has made a career out of pop sociology by applying incongruous research and data points with narrative storytelling, then packaging that all together in a way which provides practical insights into the lives of the masses. Steven Pinker is another scholar who has achieved mainstream recognition for his work. In books like The Better Angels of Our Nature and Enlightenment Now, he uses social sciences data to make compelling arguments about the general improvement of human society and our condition throughout history. These books are as research-heavy as any scholarly work, with hundreds of notes and citations, and he writes in a manner that is accessible and, just as importantly, entertaining for a general audience. In a local context, Dr. Larry Persons does an excellent job of explaining anthropology in an engaging and easy-to-understand way.
Hi, I'm Dr. Larry Persons. I've lived and worked here in Thailand for over 35 years. I have a PhD in intercultural studies, and I'm the author of the book, The Way Thais Lead. And this is Explaining Thai Culture to Foreigners. So, here's a word, Thai. English speakers struggle to explain this Thai value. It's one of those exhausting things, like it takes a whole paragraph to explain one word, and even then, you feel like you did a lousy job. Well, let's try. เกรงใจ is a feeling. It's something you feel, something you're supposed to feel, and often if you're going to be an acceptable person in public space. Literally, it means fearful heart. Well, what's to be afraid of, you might ask? Loads, man, open your eyes. Confrontation, conflict, being impolite, not showing proper respect for status, looking greedy, being inconsiderate of others, inconveniencing someone, boundary busting, making someone lose face, losing your own face, and there's more. We just don't have the time. Now understand, Thais act like this is hardwired in them. It's like common sense. If you're not aware of this part of Thai culture, it can really mess up your day, like in these three scenarios. Scenario 1, you order a dish at a restaurant. Your server returns with your food and it's not at all what you ordered. What happened? The server didn't understand your order but was too เกรงใจ to admit it. To avoid this, always get your server to repeat your order back to you. Scenario number 2. You're excited about a big transformation at work and you want ideas from your Thai team. Speak up. Tell me what you think. It's okay to disagree with me. They're all dead silent. Great then, let's do this, you say. Turns out, you don't have buy-in. They've got plenty of ideas and concerns, but they're all too เกรงใจ to speak up in front of a group of peers. Be patient. Make sure you really want to listen and try soliciting feedback one-on-one outside the meeting. Scenario number 3, you have a Thai girlfriend and you're eating dinner. Out of nowhere, she snaps at you. You always chew with your mouth open. It's so gross. Seems like a huge overreaction, but this has been months building up. She was just too เกรงใจ to tell you. She got more and more annoyed until she just couldn't take it. In any relationship, communication is vital and complicated, doubly so in intercultural relationships. Encourage your significant other to risk being vulnerable about likes and dislikes. You'll have a much better time. These are just a few examples of เกรงใจ in action, but it can affect your daily life in countless ways. Understanding เกรงใจ will help you in your social interactions with Thais. If you're confused, just ask a Thai. No need to เกรงใจ them. They'll probably be happy to explain. I'm Dr. Larry Persons, and this was Explaining Thai Culture to Foreigners.
ความเกรงใจเป็นสมบัติของผู้ดี
Dr. Persons here is talking to both Thai and expats, making them the hero. He is breaking down the ever-present concept of เกรงใจ that most people take for granted and rarely ever address. He is providing a gateway drug into the world of sociology. He is truly acting as a guide. So again, who is your hero? I was invited here today with one eye on the EEC and how funding is being allocated primarily to sciences and technology. With the emergence of the EEC will come all sorts of other issues and opportunities, cultural, societal, and linguistics. These issues present you with innumerable potential heroes to guide, if you can find the right story to tell. For example, like the EEC, Thailand 4.0 is another major initiative being pushed by the government that supposedly presents a blueprint for Thailand's technologically advanced, interconnected future. However, not everybody is convinced that Thailand 4.0 is going to succeed. Allow me to return back to Dr. Larry Persons for a moment. So Dr. Persons has a PhD in intercultural studies and published his research findings in the seminal book, The Way Thais Lead. His book is a fantastic example of applying theory and has helped me personally to understand the business landscape of Thailand much better. Yet the book is not just for foreigners. It is full of rich insights into the hierarchical power structures of Thai society. He unpacks concepts like Giat, Nata, Bun Kun, Barami, and gives rich, easy to understand examples which combine his research with his own theories and all of it backed up by building on the prior research of other academics. All of this is very much academic best practice. However, Dr. Persons isn't just resting in the classroom and in the library. As well as lecturing at SASIN, he's also a practicing business coach and keynote speaker. At the moment, his core storytelling focus is on Thailand 4.0. Specifically, how Thailand 4.0 is going to be impossible without a shift towards Thai values 4.0. By this, he means that the people of Thailand will need to re-examine many of their cultural norms to identify which of these are beneficial and which may be holding the country back. Some aspects of Thai culture, for example, the importance of social hierarchies, the concept of face, and an aversion to voicing criticism may need to be updated if Thailand is to play a more prominent role on the regional and global stage. Dr. Persons has all of the authority in the world from his academic and practical experience, as well as his doctorate, as much as from his impressive client list. However, where Dr. Persons shines is by using storytelling to develop a strong personal brand and empathy to position himself as a guide, by regularly explaining his concept of Thai Values 4.0, not just in academic papers, but through memes, articles, podcasts, videos, all amplified effectively to his target audience through social media and online channels. Recently, Dr. Persons has been talking about how Netflix and their no rules culture could be applied to Thailand. Netflix famously has few operational rules as an organization. They trust their staff to act in the best interest of Netflix. There are no rules on expected working hours, entertaining clients' expenses, time tracking. But to achieve this open and free culture, Netflix focuses heavily on ensuring high talent density in the organization and encourages an open culture of direct feedback and candor, even to the CEO. I recently had the chance to sit down with Dr. Persons on my own Bangkok Thought Leaders podcast to discuss how the Netflix culture aligns with his own research.
Key point on talent density, what came to my mind when I was reading that is that it does fly in the face of another model for most Thai companies. Most Thai companies are based on the family model. That's the metaphor. We're one big family. And I mean, there are people, for instance, many Thai Chinese companies, they've got someone who's been, an uncle who's been working there for years and years and years. And even after he can't do anything, they still retain him. And they really squirm at mass firings and all. But the idea of talent density is that you're willing to give up 3 or 4 average people if you can hire a rock star.
Yep.
And that seems like you're not supposed to be able to kick people out of the family, if you know what I mean. Yep. So that they would literally have to, any company would have to shift their thinking, I think, to say, no, we're more like a professional sports team, which is what they talk about.
It's a powerful metaphor because, again, I think of Lexicon as a family. We struggle together, we go through things together, we succeed together. But the idea that, a sports team, as you said, it's about who's performing best. Like, we need gold medal winners.
What I love about Dr. Persons' work is that he's taking his research beyond the lecture hall. Too often, great ideas stay inside the humanities and social sciences because we don't know how to translate them to the broader culture.
How do we look to the future without rejecting our past here in Thailand? And the way to do that is the pathway of Barami, to walk that pathway, because what it involves is it's treating people with respect, but Barami leaders tend to create meritocracies. And if you talk, I do a lot of coaching and consulting here in Thailand, and if you talk to particularly the younger ones, the young gens, they're interested more in a meritocracy. They're asking for it. And Barami leaders are leaders who, from the first, they let virtue lead their decisions. They are fair in their decision making, and they're willing to correct people below them, but they do it with dignity and honor. And in the end, it turns into a meritocracy where the right leaders rise for the right reasons. And that's what we're all looking for, right, in a just society.
Dr. Persons makes me a hero of his stories, and I keep coming back for more. He genuinely guides me and helps me. By framing his messages in a digitally savvy way and adapting them to the real-world problems faced by his target audience, Dr. Persons is able to translate his authority in a way that shows empathy to his audience. As a result, he resonates. So as you move forward, try to identify your hero and think about ways you can use your authority and show empathy to guide the hero. Is your hero Chinese business people investing in the EEC? Is it Thai or foreign governments? Is it potential students? Whoever your hero is, you need to connect with them on their terms. And in the digital age, that connection is likely to be online. So develop your personal branding. Brush up on the essentials of storytelling. You may want to partner with existing online platforms or even to develop your own online platforms for storytelling. But to connect with your hero, you're going to have to find out where they congregate and speak to them on their terms. There are infinite storytelling opportunities in the humanities and social sciences. If you can tell these stories well, I guarantee you will thrive in the digital age. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Norcross, who discussed challenges and opportunities for the humanities and social sciences in the digital age. And he also suggests pathways that can help keep the spotlight on the important work being done in these critical areas of academia by using the power of storytelling. So now we welcome questions and comments from the floor. Please, if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, and talk to Mr. David Norcross, or you can post your questions or comments in the chat box, please.
ขอบคุณเดวิดมากเลยนะคะที่ได้แสดงให้เราเห็นถึงความท้าทายแล้วก็โอกาสทางมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์ในยุคดิจิทัลนะคะเราก็ได้เสนอให้เราได้เห็นถึงแนวทางที่จะช่วยให้งานวิชาการในสายของเราเนี่ยได้มีโอกาสในการที่จะถ่ายทอดไปยังกลุ่มเป้าหมายได้น่าสนใจนะคะผ่านทาง storytelling รวมไปถึงบริบทต่างๆในตัว EC ที่เราสามารถหยิบประโยชน์จาก storytelling มาใช้ได้นะคะสำหรับท่านที่มีคำถามนะคะสามารถที่จะกดยกมือนะคะก็ได้หรือว่าจะกดไมค์เปิดถามคำถามเลยก็ได้หรือว่าจะส่งคำถามมาทางช่อง chat box ก็ได้ค่ะเรียนเชิญนะคะ
So I have a question. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for Mr. Norcross for your very, very intriguing keynote address. It seemed very clear to me that it is very positive that humanities and social sciences still can be flourished even in the digital age, as far as we have to identify our heroes, right? But again, you know, right now at the university, based on some research criteria to evaluate the quality of the research in humanities and social science, which we know that you know, it's all research seem to gear more towards on the aesthetics of mind, the beauties and everything, things that we do, right? Now it is required that, you know, for researcher to provide quantifiable or commercial results of the research in order to attain value. So many research in our field feel very disgusting. They talk about the ROI, return on investment. Okay, so I would like to know your opinion regarding, you know, the roles or this kind of a criteria, you know, when assessing our research in humanities. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think the concept of ROI is probably not appropriate. I agree with you. It is. It doesn't apply to theories, but I think it's better to frame it in a different way, where it's more the return may not be financial, but developing a better understanding of things. So I think I mentioned Dr. Persons a lot in my presentation because I think he's a really great example of, I've read his book and his PhD, and his PhD is a classic PhD. It's, 100,000 words, deep research, on the ground, preemptive research, hundreds of citations. It's exceptional. But what makes best practice in academia, it doesn't work in the outside world. No one wants to read 100,000 words. They want to see that small video from Dr. Persons, taking the abstract and turning it into the Grangjai video or turning it into a podcast. The things that the government or the private sector is pushing you towards, they're trying to make you do their work for them. You need to take your independence back. So you need to be thinking through what the future looks like. So I mentioned the EEC, but it could be Thailand, it could be the whole world. What changes are going to be occurring over the next 5 years, 10 years? Let's try to make sure that we're understanding those changes, we're doing our research based on those changes, and then we're able to translate those changes into interesting stories that we can publish, through your own Facebook page with some advertising. Publish them through your professor's personal branding accounts on LinkedIn. But there are always stories happening around us. We work very closely with a platform called BKK Edition, which is where the Grangjai video for Dr. Persons was. There's so many fascinating stories in Thailand of underappreciated communities. And I think the zeitgeist for Thailand right now is moving away from the more traditional world in which many things you couldn't talk about. It seems that for this generation, they're happy to talk about everything. So if we can identify some ways that, just to give you a very dangerous example, CP, what is CP doing in the community? What are they doing to farmers in the countryside? These are the kind of stories that certainly I would want to read about. I would want to watch videos about. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but you can take a very academic concept of what's happening in the farming sector in relation to how farmers are in debt because they're in slave contracts with the people who are buying their animals. We can turn that very academic concept into a very fun, very engaging, very emotional video by thinking about the hero. And in that story, right, the hero, of course, is the farmer. But in marketing terms, we want to get people to take action. So the hero in a marketing sense is all of us as consumers. We'd want to tell a story to the whole of Thailand who are buying chicken from CP, who are buying products from CP, and show them the effects of their purchasing decisions. In that sense, we can affect real change. So the only people who would fund that would be NGOs, I would imagine. NGOs, possibly newspapers, possibly online magazines. But whatever you're doing, try and take a step back and think about which part of this story could resonate. And sometimes it's ROI, but most of the time it's going to be almost like return on insight. Like you can give even the government a better sense of what's happening in developing communities than they would otherwise have. So it's a very long answer, but I hope it was somewhat helpful.
Thank you very much for your answer. Now we'll open for questions and comments from the audience. Okay, we are doing great in terms of timing, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions to Mr. Norcross. To me, it seems like storytelling is a recurrent theme in our conference this time as well. We also, apart from Mr. David Norcross, another speaker of ours, Dr. Brooke Kessler, also mentioned about storytelling. So I think it's a concept that can help us put our work on spotlight. And like you said, if we tell the right story to the right audience, we can achieve what we can do. Right. Thank you very much.
So it's me again. Mr. Norcos, you have touched upon the projects of the EEC, which is the big government scheme, the new scheme, like Thailand 4.0. You mentioned that, in order for Thailand to be successful, it need to, Thai people probably need to change the attitude. You mentioned about that. From your experience or your suggestions based on what you have said, you think, the researcher, especially the young ones, what role they could play, in these regional areas, especially when conducting research, when competing with those in science and technologies.
There's a few questions there. First of all, I think the thing about the Thai values, that's all Dr. Persons. That's not my research, that's him. But in terms of competing against science and technology, I think they're complementary. They're not in opposition to each other. I think at the moment, because the EEC is being built, there has to be a lot more, time spent on infrastructure, I would imagine. Developing trains and bridges and new cities, you have to build those things. But once they're built, you're going to have a lot of people occupying those spaces. You're going to have Chinese business people and American corporations, and you're going to have Myanmar factory workers and people from Isan coming in there. You're going to have all sorts of different communities coexisting in a way that is more advanced than Thailand's ever seen before. You possibly are going to have the development of a second capital in the Eastern Seaboard. So certainly if that happens, Borapar is very well positioned to be the academic consultant of that complicated mass of nationalities and people and ages. For your other question about how does the youth compete, I think Thailand has been very lucky over the last 100 years, maybe, that Thailand's been very stable compared to its neighbors. The neighbors have had communism and wars and dictatorships and massacres and many, many things that for many reasons Thailand just hasn't had. So there's been an advantage that as long as Thailand remains stable, it can win. As those other countries start to become more stable, they have an advantage over us, who's focused on stability more than creativity for the last few decades. I think Thailand, I love Thailand. I love living here. Every single day I see creative people, talented people, smart people, but very often they're limited by the structures of the organizations they're within. So I used to work for a big Thai organization. I won't say the name, so I don't get into any trouble. But when I was there, it was very much not about your ability, but about your, how old you were, how long you've been in the company for, what your surname was. That determined where you were in the organization. So there was, if you were 55 years old and you were friends with the CEO and you had the right surname, then you were the boss and it didn't matter your ability. I'm hoping that what we're seeing with this new generation is that not that they don't respect the senior people, I think they do respect the senior people, but we need to see an increase in meritocracy. We need to see the best people, no matter what their age is, genuinely get opportunities to push things forward. We're always going to see more innovation in the youth. They need us, older people, to help guide them, to shape their knowledge, to give them the right context. But we're going to see great leaps forward from Vietnam, already from Singapore, from Malaysia. If Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar can get their things together, there'll be a big competition for us too. Thailand's future is not production. Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, these will be the companies producing. Thailand's future has to be intellectual. It has to be intellectual property. So it has all of the resources that we need to push forward. We need to embrace dangerous ideas in order to create a critical thinking mass that's able to compete. And as you know from academia, not every idea is a good idea, but we have to keep trying. We have to keep testing. We have to keep learning. And if we do that, eventually we come across a great idea. So the great thing about storytelling is there's a story for everybody. You know, some stories are huge, some stories are tiny, but even those tiny stories, they have an audience. I work in marketing and we work with clients who their target audience is 10 million people. Some of them, their target audience is 200 people. It's fine. The same approach works. If you're speaking to the government, it might only be 50 people you have to convince, but try to speak to them in the words they understand. Shape your story around the data points that most resonate with them. So yeah, I think in terms of ability, Thailand has all the ability in the world. I think your university is in a great position, both geographically and metaphorically, that a lot of attention is going to focus to the East. If you guys can be the ones coming out with interesting, forward-looking stories of what Thailand's EEC will look like in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, conflicts that are going to emerge between communities, opportunities to develop new, genuinely Thailand 4.0. If it happens in a different place, it can evolve differently than how it's evolved in Bangkok. So I think it's a wonderful time for Borapa, and I think the humanities and social sciences have the ability to be at least at the same level as science and tech, possibly way advanced.
Thank you very much. Do we have more questions from the audience? If you are not familiar with the EEC, so it stands for Eastern Economic Corridor, and Burapha University is located in this strategic location, and the university itself is the leading university in as a part of driving this government scheme. Okay? So as humanities and social sciences scholars, sometimes we feel intimidated by science and technology faculties because like the questions from the audience earlier, sometimes our projects, they expect us to come up with the amount of money in the return of our research project. So these are our challenges. But we are here today to gather and to see what are opportunities for us in the humanities and social sciences. So we are not that hopeless. I think we should be hopeful about what we can do to the community. And like you said, sometimes it's not about the money, right? It's the we provide better understandings on several aspects of the society and humanities, and I think we are the best group of people who can tell the best stories.
Yeah, I think in terms of ROI, sometimes it's better to think about ROO, which is return on objective. Like if we set out to say we're going to study 10,000 migrant people working in this sector, and we're going to come back with information on how they feel about this, or how this policy is affecting them, we have to reframe that conversation because it's not an ROI. You know, there's no short-term monetary benefit to that. But for the government, if they know that there's going to be disharmony or massive turnover of staff, or that that sector is going to collapse, in the long term, that's billions and billions of dollars. So our job is to give them, to set out clear objectives, to explain how those objectives fit into societal harmony, and then to deliver on those objectives. I think we have to reframe that conversation from ROI to ROO.
That's nice, thank you. That's new to me. Okay, we have some times if you have more questions, but our team has posted the link to evaluation forum of the conference, and as well as the link to book of abstract for our conference. So everyone, if you follow all the links, you can find all the abstracts for our presentations, including the keynote speeches for our conference as well. And in a moment, I'd like to ask everyone, here we have 100 more than 100 attendees in this Zoom meeting. So we'd like to see you and keep some pictures from this morning. So feel free to turn your camera on if you like, and then we can take some group photos together in a moment, please. So feel free to turn on your camera.
ค่ะเดี๋ยวในช่วงเวลาต่อไปนะคะเรารบกวนท่านผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านที่อยู่ใน Zoom Meeting นี้ของเรานะคะร่วมเปิดกล้องเพื่อถ่ายภาพหมู่ร่วมกันนะคะขอเรียนเชิญทุกท่านที่สะดวกนะคะเปิดกล้องเพื่อถ่ายภาพกับเราค่ะ
Mr. David Norcross for your keynote for today on the digitalizing ethnography, how storytelling from the humanities and social sciences can shape a digital world. Okay, I'd like to give you a big round of applause if possible, if you were in the room. Thank you very much for joining us on your busy schedule.
ค่ะขอขอบคุณคุณเดวิดเป็นอย่างสูงเลยนะคะที่ได้มาสร้างแรงบันดาลใจให้กับเราในวันนี้ไม่ว่าจะเป็นแนวทางในการผสมผสานงานวิชาการกับ storytelling เพื่อให้งานของเรามีความน่าสนใจมากยิ่งขึ้นนะคะรวมถึงได้อีกหนึ่งแนวคิดที่อาจารย์สตราพรได้อธิบายไปเมื่อสักครู่นะคะก็คือการเปลี่ยนจาก return on investment ไปโฟกัสที่ return on objective แล้วก็ท่านก็ยังได้แสดงให้เรานะคะได้เห็นถึงโอกาสทางการแข่งขันของมหาวิทยาลัยบูรพาของเราโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งในเรื่องทำเลที่ตั้งของเรานะคะเพื่อที่จะผลิตผลงานทางวิชาการในการตอบสนองนโยบายของประเทศแล้วก็อย่างที่อาจารย์สตราพรได้แจ้งนะคะว่าในแชทบ็อกซ์นะคะจะมีลิงก์ประเมินงานของเราอยากให้ทุกท่านเข้าร่วมนะคะที่ได้เข้าร่วมประเมินงานของเราและนอกจากนั้นนะคะถ้าหากว่าท่านที่สนใจจะดูบทคัดย่อนะคะสามารถดูได้ที่ลิงก์ Book of Abstract ในช่องแชทบ็อกซ์เช่นเดียวกันค่ะสำหรับวันนี้ขอบคุณคุณเดวิดอีกครั้งนะคะ
Right, and that wraps up our morning, okay, here from the main room. And from 10:20 until noon, we have concurrent paper presentations. We have 4 rooms today. Room 1 and room 2 will be for international papers, and room 3 and 4 for national papers. And then after the lunch break from 12:15 until about 1:55, we have the concurrent paper presentations. And then we will conclude our conference with a special workshop, Teaching and Learning with Mobile Technology by Dr. Brooke Hessler from California College of the Arts and our Fulbright specialist.
ค่ะสำหรับช่วงต่อไปนะคะยาวไปจนถึงเวลาประมาณ 14 นาฬิกาค่ะจะเป็นการนำเสนอผลงานวิจัยห้องย่อยนะคะทั้งระดับชาติและระดับนานาชาติค่ะโดยเช่นเคยนะคะท่านผู้มีเกียรติสามารถที่จะดูรายละเอียดการเข้าร่วมในแต่ละห้องย่อยนะคะได้จากข้อมูลในแชทบ็อกซ์นะคะรวมไปถึงในเว็บไซต์งานคอนเฟอเรนซ์ของเราค่ะและหลังจากนั้นนะคะหลังจากเวลา 14 นาฬิกาค่ะจะเป็น Special Workshop ค่ะจากดร. Brooke Hessler นะคะในหัวข้อ Teaching and Learning with Mobile Technology ค่ะ
Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this morning. We wish you a pleasant day and see you again.
ค่ะในวันนี้นะคะช่วงเวลาของพิธีการในช่วงเช้าได้เสร็จสิ้นเรียบร้อยแล้วนะคะเราหวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งค่ะว่างานวันนี้นะคะคงเป็นประโยชน์ต่อทุกท่านไม่มากก็น้อยนะคะหากมีข้อผิดพลาดประการใดนะคะดิฉันอาจารย์พันธิราชและอาจารย์สุตราพรนะคะในฐานะตัวแทนคณะมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์ต้องขออภัยไว้ณที่นี้ด้วยนะคะปีหน้าหวังว่าจะได้กลับมาเจอกันแบบออนไซต์นะคะสำหรับวันนี้ขอบคุณและสวัสดีค่ะ
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second day. Okay, good afternoon again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second day of our conference on the Humanities and Social Sciences from Burapha University. And this afternoon, again, we have special workshop by one of our keynote speakers, Dr. Brooke Hessler from California College of the Arts and Fulbright specialist to Burapha University. I am Ajahn Sutraphon Tanti Niranat, and I will be your MC and moderator for this afternoon. And then before we get started, it's my pleasure again to introduce you our speaker for this afternoon, our Dr. Brooke Hessler. Dr. Brooke is a digital fluency specialist and director of learning resources at California College of the Arts in San Francisco, the States. Her work at the intersections of new media, humanities, and social sciences includes mentoring faculty, students, and civic educators in the uses of participatory media projects such as digital storytelling for critical reflection, creative research, and intercultural dialogue. And while serving as an endowed professor of writing at Oklahoma City University, Dr. Hessler was inducted into the Da Vinci Institute for Educational Innovation and co-founded the Virtual Archives project, through which college students co-created digital exhibits and conducted oral history research with survivors of domestic terrorism. More recently, she has served as an external advisor on the Georgia Institute of Technology Biomedical Engineering Program's story-driven curriculum for developing entrepreneurial mindsets, and as an executive board member of the Online Writing Association. Dr. Brooke kindly delivered her keynote speech yesterday morning to start off our conference. And we are so honored to have her again as our speaker for this special workshop on teaching and learning with mobile technology. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Dr. Brooke Hessler.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brooke. Over to you.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here, and I have to make this as transparent as possible. I am just a teacher, and I am in this beautiful room right now, surrounded by technology and flowers and colleagues, and it's a very unusual environment for me to be leading a workshop in. So I suspect that there will be moments when I become giddy or nervous, or where I look down instead of up. And I just, I appreciate your indulgence as I adapt to this new surrounding. Additionally, I was in quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks until yesterday. So just having such beautiful space around me and so many warm smiles, even though some are behind masks, is a real gift to me also. So we're going to lead you through a short 2-hour workshop on different ways to use mobile technology in your teaching. Based on the experiences and conversations I've had over the past 24 hours or so, I know that many of you are also adapting to technology in many new ways, particularly as the new semester begins in just a week or so, right? With everyone teaching online, we have to adapt not only to our own different types of preparedness, but also to the different needs of our students who are joining us online under very diverse circumstances. We don't always know what kinds of access and tools they have to work with. We don't always know, for example, whether if I create a Google Doc that seems very easy to access, maybe it's not accessible to everybody. So we can't take anything for granted right now as teachers. And so my goal for this workshop is to share a few very basic practices that should be widely accessible to most of our students and most of our teaching environments. But again, I ask your indulgence as we figure out what will work, and in including in this workshop today. Things may not go perfectly, but please just let's all keep our sense of humor and roll with it. So here's my presentation. Please do use Zoom at any time during the workshop today to post questions, to introduce yourself. If there are any ideas you would like us to talk about throughout the workshop or at the end as a group, I would very much welcome your input. And Dr. Kwan will be moderating that. I want to thank you again, Dr. Sutraporn, for leading me to this community, and to the very generous colleagues who have organized this conference and hosted me so beautifully through the Husserl English Writing Center, as well as at Burapha University. So thank you all for being here with me. Oh, and thank you Fulbright Thailand also for making sure I made it here. Okay, with that, these are the tools I would like you to have nearby if possible. Some sort of writing implement to take notes, definitely some kind of mobile device if possible. I'm going to be sharing activities that you can do with just a mobile phone today. I realize that when we talk about teaching with mobile technology, we are discussing a wide range of tools. But for today, I'm focusing on the most ubiquitous tool, or at least the one that our students are most likely to have available to them. And then finally, as a resource, a sense of play. As I said, this should be a joyful experience. I know most of you who have attended our conference have been busy in concurrent sessions. Over 120 papers have been presented at this conference. That is so impressive. I look forward to hearing more also about maybe how your conversations today in these panels might connect to the kinds of teaching and learning we're talking about today. Here is our basic format for the workshop. I'll very briefly touch upon what I mean by mobile learning, but then we're going to have a big chunk of time where I stop talking and you all make stuff and we share it. I'm hoping that that will be a relief to people who have been staring at Zoom a long time. However, I realized that if you came to the workshop expecting more of a lecture, that you may have to move out of your comfort zone to actually do some playing during the workshop. We will definitely have a focus on student engagement today. I know again from our conversations at this conference and online in our larger communities of practice as educators, that engaging students at this time online is particularly challenging. And we want to be as humanized as we can in these practices. So I'm hoping that our emphasis on mobile devices will assist that and not distract us from the time we need to spend with our students. We will have a short break for a little stretching because conferencing is exhausting. And then after that short break, we will do more playing and explore some additional options for using mobile technology. Okay, so when I talk about teaching and learning with technology, the key term that many people use is M-learning. And the four main categories of M-learning are, or the four, not four categories, the four impetuses, reasons for using mobile technology are foremost to engage our students. Next, to foster critical thinking through hands-on co-creative learning. Also, some people use mobile technology as a way to gather data. So sometimes we use mobile devices to help our students do research in the field and capture it on their devices and bring that information back to the classroom. I have very bad eyesight. Oh, okay. Better? See, this is one of those examples. So some of us use mobile devices as a way to gather data, either data gathering that we want our students to do as they go into the field to do their observations and research. Other people use mobile devices to gather data about the learning experience in their classes. So we will talk a little bit about that after the break. And then finally, many of us are using these devices to diversify the way that we have teaching and learning happen in our classrooms. So yesterday during my keynote, I talked about 4 fluencies, 4 ways to be more digitally adept. So we have kind of this overarching goal of improving the digital fluency of our own practices and of our students' practices. And then underneath that larger umbrella of digital fluency, there are these 4 sub-fluencies I talked about. One of them I referred to as a maker fluency. I come from California College of the Arts. I'm in the Silicon Valley area, basically, of California. So the idea of a maker space and of making as a form of learning and of professional practice is very much a common and fashionable way to talk about what we're trying to do with learners. But the term experiential learning, hands-on learning, all of those terms also apply to this kind of learning. So for our workshop today, I invite you to think about yourself as a maker and to think about working with mobile devices as an opportunity to create a maker space with our students, virtually or in person. So this photograph is of a maker space in Dresden, Germany. Many people think about maker spaces primarily in terms of hacking, robotics, other ways that we use technology to innovate and play. But, it's also a practice that applies to hands-on learning of all kinds. And I think that when we have our students use mobile devices in our classes, we're trying to conjure up that same spirit of ingenuity, of collaboration, of working with different materials. So even though most of us will be teaching in an online environment where we don't get to sit around and, play with different colors and put things on the wall with our students, we still virtually have the opportunity to create that mindset and to encourage our students to see themselves as makers and as collaborators. And with that, I invite you to join us in our Google folder. So the bit.ly, the small URL is on my screen. You might take a snap of it with your camera phone. It's also in the chat. I know that not everyone has access to Google, but if you do, please do click on the link, and you may need to log into a Google account and join us in that folder space. Now, having said that, this is not going to work for everyone. And as a professor who works with technology a lot online, I know that no matter how well planned my class is, all kinds of things aren't going to work. And so today I ask you as a teacher to experience our making process and take note, again, on paper if needed. Notice what this process is like for you. Notice when things go wrong and how you respond, because when we become makers, we also become students. So I deliberately structured our workshop to begin with some small hands-on activities so that we would have more to talk about. Oh, I've also included my personal email address there. It might get a little complicated, but I am definitely willing to try using my own email if necessary to take some files of yours and put them into the Google space. So when we move into those activities, if it's not working for you, but you still want to participate, you are most welcome to use my Gmail email address to send me images or audio files that you would like included in our collection as we work today. So here is our first activity. This is something that I do with my students during the very first week of class as a way to humanize our online learning experience. This idea of humanizing our virtual experience is something that many of us have been talking about already for many weeks and months. I know that some of you kindly attended my workshop on humanizing online learning last week, and this is one application of that teaching method. So what I invite you to do for a 15-minute making experience is to find a voice memo app on your phone. On iDevices, the name of the voice memo app is, I think, Voice Memo. I'm finding it. Voice Memos. And your device may have a different app, but most of us with mobile phones have some kind of audio recording memo feature. That is all you need for this first exercise. I'd like you to record yourself saying your name and what you prefer to be called, and then email that file to yourself, upload it into our class directory, and ideally rename the file so that it has your complete name. Now, I've given this instruction visually on my screen. I've said it out loud. I'm also going to exit my Google slide and demonstrate it on my screen. And I'm doing this because when we're teaching in an online space with our students, they also appreciate it when we use more than one modality to share our instructions. So I'm clicking into my, oh no, it's not in that one. I have many folders. Don't judge. Okay, this is the Huso English Writing Center has very kindly hosted many of the materials that I've been sharing over the past 2 weeks. So please note, more things exist. What you have access to is the folder I'm bringing up now. Inside this folder is the one that your link goes to, which is called 18 June Workshop Activities. After today's workshop, I will also save this Google slide deck as a PDF file, along with this article by EDUCAUSE on teaching and learning with devices. And you will have access to the PDF of today's slide deck and this article that goes over many of the principles and practices and research behind teaching and learning with mobile devices. And you will have access to this other folder that you're using now to do our hands-on activities. Inside this folder, you'll notice there are 4 subfolders. We may not get to do all 4 activities, but I included them just in case they would be of interest to you. We will see how much time we have today to do the activities. We will have time for at least the first 2. So what you're doing right now is activity 1. And what I'd like you to do is record your voice saying your name, save it as a file like I've done. So this is an audio file. I give the name I prefer to be called, in parentheses, my full name. And when I click it, hopefully you will hear my recording. And I am not hearing it. Did you hear it? Try it at home. So when you try it on your computer, can you hear it? Okay. So in the Zoomiverse, who knows what will happen? I know that in the Googleverse, if you're just a regular human being, not in Zoom, accessing this folder, you'll hear it.
But I can hear it from the folder.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
So if you follow the link on the chat box here and go directly to the link to the first subfolder and you click play, you will hear Dr. Hessler saying her name.
Thank you. So I'd like to give you time to do that from now until, say, 2:35.
Let me help translating this
Yes.
into Thai. So we want to include as many people as we can. So I'm going to provide some Thai translation for what Dr. Brooke would like you to do right now. ขออนุญาตแปลเป็นไทยนิดนึงนะคะ ก็อาจารย์ใช้คำว่า maker ใช่ไหมคะ maker ถ้าใครติดตามเวิร์กช็อปของอาจารย์ก่อนหน้านี้ค่ะ คือเราจะไม่ใช่เป็นแค่ user อย่างเดียวแล้วนะคะ ในสมัยนี้นะคะเป็นอาจารย์เราก็ต้องสร้างอะไรขึ้นมาด้วยอาจารย์เลยใช้คำว่า maker นะคะแล้วในกิจกรรมนี้นะคะเราได้โพสต์ลิงก์ไปที่ Google Drive นะคะตรงนั้นจะเป็น subfolder 1 2 3 4นะคะ subfolder แรกนะคะจะเป็น class directory อาจารย์มูขอให้ทุกคนนะคะลองใช้แอปอัดเสียงนะคะในมือถือของเราเนี่ยนะคะแล้วก็พูดชื่อเราค่ะ full name หรือว่าชื่อที่เราอยากให้คนรู้จักเรานะคะเสร็จแล้วอาจารย์อาจจะเซฟลงในเครื่องนะคะแล้วก็ส่งอีเมลถึงตัวเองนะคะแล้วก็อาจารย์ก็เปิดจากอีเมลตัวเองค่ะเสร็จแล้วก็เอาไฟล์ไปอัปโหลดไว้ที่ Google Drive ที่เราโพสต์ไว้ในแชทนะคะอาจารย์ให้เวลา15 นาทีนะคะก็ประมาณ10 นาทีนะคะประมาณบ่าย 2:35นะคะตอนนี้เราเป็นเวลาที่อาจารย์จะได้ลองเล่นลองทำลองผลิตอะไรขึ้นมานะคะง่ายๆโดยใช้โมบายเทคโนโลยีหรือโทรศัพท์ของเราเองนะคะอาจารย์ลองดูนะคะถ้าติดขัดยังไงถามได้นะคะขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you. As everyone is hopefully participating, I thought maybe since not everyone will be in a situation where you can do the hands-on activities, it might be a good idea for me to talk a little more about why we're doing it as the other participants are completing the task. So for those of you who may be walking home from the conference, just listening to our workshop and are curious about why we would do this, here are some explanations. For one thing, I find that even in an online, online, some of us are teaching synchronously. So we're meeting at the same time and we're interacting live and hearing each other's voices. Some of us are teaching in asynchronous environments where we post things to a learning management system and our students respond asynchronously at their own time. And so in those classes, we don't get to hear our students' voices this semester at all. Even in the synchronous environments where potentially we could have conversations, sometimes our classes are so large that we don't actually get the opportunity to interact one-on-one in the same intimate, personal way that we would in a regular classroom. And the same is true for our students' experiences online. They are missing more opportunities to make connections with one another. And so this class directory activity is a way for each student to hear each other's voice. It's also a way for them to know how to refer to each other on those rare occasions when we are in a class discussion together. And that's true in the asynchronous environment also. In the environments where we are mostly communicating over discussion boards or messages, people still appreciate being called their preferred name. So the class directory is a fairly efficient way to get really crucial information about our students' preferences. It enables us to make sure that when we do communicate with them individually, we're doing it as well as we can. At California College of the Arts, it's also our practice to share the pronouns that we use, our gender pronouns. So in Zoom, I identify as she or they because I'm comfortable using both of those pronouns. It's quite possible that you have students who you may not know which pronoun is most appropriate for them in conversation. So if that is a practice that would be appropriate with your students, that would be yet another way to personalize how it is we self-identify online. In Zoom, I automatically put my full name and then she, they next to it. In a less formal environment, I might just say Brooke, since that's my preferred name in general. But this activity is intended to mirror that goal. So today we're doing the activity in a Google document because some of you might use Moodle, some might use Microsoft Teams or Google Classroom or Slack or anything. So I was trying to find a common location for us to work from. You do you. I see we have one other brave soul so far. I'll refresh just in case there are more. Maybe not. Do you see more? Just two so far. And since there are intervals where I have you doing activities, this is also a time when I could talk to you in the chat or respond to questions in the chat. That's a luxury, actually. Yesterday during the keynote, for example, I could not see the chat as I was speaking, so I didn't have the same opportunity to interact. So likewise, to become metacognitive here, notice how if you use some of your class time to invite your students to do an activity like this, you also give yourself a little bit of flexibility during that time to respond to individual questions that might come up. And we have about 5 more minutes left in this activity. If you are having trouble finding your voice memo app or logging into Google or anything like that, feel free to mention any difficulty that I might help in the chat, or just make a note of it, because again, we will have about roughly 30 minutes of just making things at the beginning of our workshop. And then we will move into time to reflect on what went well or not. You know, if we have 30 some participants right now in this workshop and only a couple of us have done the exercise, maybe that means I, as a teacher, chose the wrong exercise. Or maybe it just means people aren't in a comfortable situation to complete the activity. Just like you, when you are with your students, you don't know, you don't know whether participation is being supported by what you've set up or not. all you can go on is by class participation that is visible on your screen. So for me, like I might know, wow, I'm talking too much because I'm nervous because not enough people are doing it. Or I could say, oh, maybe I need to figure out more time at the beginning of the workshop to have conversations with my participants to see if this activity is relevant or interesting. I didn't do that. So that is a lesson I might learn for next time. So we have 3 more minutes if you'd like to give it a try. We have one more, yay. And I invite you to click and listen to these wonderful voices. Many of us are uncomfortable hearing our own recorded voice, and yet it's the most intimate, beautiful human thing that we can share sometimes. I know that when I hear my students' voices, it feels like such a gift. So do take an opportunity to listen to the voices of your classmates in our workshop.
I think this is a good idea, Ajahn Brooke. Just this morning with the news, it is a very strange looking name, Thai name, with difficult spelling, and nobody was sure how to pronounce that. And that became a news.
Yeah.
So yeah, our names are quite difficult, and some people are preferred to be called something else. So this is a good exercise, and I think it's very easy to do. It's very easy to make. Now we are not just users of technology, but we are makers.
I have a new favorite student. No, thank you very much for that. It really is. This is one of those basic techniques that has transformed my experience in the online classroom with my students. It is an activity that I do in my normal teaching where we meet face to face, but we usually have a learner management system that we use as a supplement to our online class. And so I use our Moodle site as a place to keep the directory. And I find that my students are more likely to interact with one another when they have that reference to remember somebody's name. It can also be very convenient for small group work. If you're organizing students into groups to do projects, oftentimes they will only work with people they already know, they're already comfortable with. And one barrier to connecting with a student that is unfamiliar is the name. And where I teach, my students might change their name over the course of a semester. They might decide to be a different version of themselves, from if my class begins in June, by August, they may have had a major life transformation and they might prefer to be called something else. The class directory is a place where they could update that information. And honestly, students come to us for transformation. They come to university at all ages to transform themselves. And so it makes sense that their names might change also. So it's now 2:35, and I will peek one more time in the directory. Give it one more time to reload. Okay, still just a small cohort, but that's okay. We've demonstrated the technique. And again, the purpose of this workshop is to demonstrate a few things that are pretty accessible for most students using most technology access. So if this might be useful for you in the future, you can still go back and see our artifacts in the file as examples. So let's do just one more activity. This is very similar. It's iteratively building on the previous one. And I call this Where We Are Sight and Sound. So for this activity, I'd like you to, again, use your voice memo app. And this time, record the ambient sound of the place you are right now. Next, take a picture of that place. email yourself those 2 files. When you download them to your computer, you're going to change the file names so that they are descriptive, and then you're going to upload them into the folder. So I've explained it orally. It's on the screen, the instructions. I'm next going to demonstrate. For those of you who teach in a synchronous live environment, I really do recommend doing what I just did, explaining things 3 different ways. And if you're in an asynchronous class where your students are logging in at different times, you could do a video recording of the demonstration or a screen capture of the demonstration and have that video be the 3rd way that you explain it. So you could record your voice speaking it, you would have the text on the screen, and then perhaps a video demonstrating it to give students 3 different ways to follow your instructions. So here's the folder. And here are the 2 files I made as demonstration. The first one is my audio recording. This is my ambient sound from the balcony of my quarantine hotel in Bangkok. I took my mobile phone, I turned on my voice memo app, and I just held it from my balcony to capture some of the sounds. Then I sent that short file to myself, and I took a photo of the space, and I'll show that to you now. So that's a picture of where I was sitting as I recorded my ambient sound. And you can see in the picture, I have a book that I was reading. And for your exercise, you are welcome to take any image that appeals to you about your current space. And I encourage you to make it distinctive, according to what you find interesting. So I could have shown you just a picture of the outside over the balcony, but in my case, the fact that I was on the balcony was an important part of the constraint and perspective of my space. So I wanted to include the balcony as part of it. I had a book in my hand just because, and so I kept that in the picture because I thought in a way it might be fun to have a piece of my, my body, myself in the picture. But if I were to do the same activity here, I might take a picture of this water bottle or of these beautiful flowers in front of me, or of all of this amazing technology around me to capture what it feels like to be here right now. And I've just inspired myself, and I'm going to do that. So let's all do it together. This activity, for those of you who are able to take the time to do it, we're going to, again, go back to the written instructions here, and we'll take about another 15 minutes to do it. But again, I'll invite Ajahn Kwan to explain it.
Right. Okay, in this, sorry, I have to speak Thai. ก็ค่ะกิจกรรมนี้นะคะก็อาจารย์ให้พวกเรานะคะลองอัดเสียงค่ะใช้ voice memo app ของเราที่เราใช้เมื่อกี้นะคะลองอัดเสียงค่ะบรรยากาศรอบๆตัวเราในจุดที่เราอยู่ตอนนี้นะคะอาจจะเป็นคลิปเสียงสั้นๆนะคะแล้วก็ถ่ายภาพค่ะบรรยากาศนะคะหรือว่าอาจจะเป็นอะไรก็ได้ที่เราคิดว่ามันมีความหมายกับเราในขณะนี้นะคะเช่นอาจารย์รู้ยกตัวอย่างเช่นอาจารย์ถ่ายภาพจากโรงแรมที่อาจารย์ควอรันทีนนะคะ15 วันนะคะอยู่ตรงนั้นอาจารย์ก็ถ่ายรูประเบียงเพราะรู้สึกว่าโอเคมันเป็น space ณบรรยากาศโมเมนต์ตรงนั้นนะคะมีความสำคัญกับอาจารย์รู้ณจุดนั้นแต่ถ้าอาจารย์รู้ต้องถ่ายรูปใหม่ตอนนี้ก็อาจจะถ่ายบรรยากาศในแถวๆนี้นะคะในห้องที่เราออกอากาศหรือว่าถ่ายรูปกดน้ำอะไรก็ได้นะคะขอให้ทุกคนนะคะทำ2 อย่างนะคะก็คืออัดเสียงด้วยนะคะแล้วก็ถ่ายภาพบรรยากาศเสร็จแล้วเราก็นำไปอัปโหลดค่ะในโฟลเดอร์ที่แชร์เมื่อสักครู่นะคะเป็นซับโฟลเดอร์ที่2นะคะชื่อกิจกรรม where we are sound and sight นะคะอันนี้ให้เวลา15 นาทีค่ะเหมือนกับเมื่อสักครู่นะคะสามารถใช้เวลานะคะได้เลยนะคะแล้วก็เราสามารถอัปโหลดนะคะในโฟลเดอร์ที่อาจารย์รู้แปะไปใน แชทนะคะตรงนั้นสำหรับคนที่เพิ่งเข้ามานะคะตอนนี้เราทำกิจกรรมที่2อยู่ค่ะกิจกรรมที่2เรามีชื่อว่า Where We Are Sound and Sight นะคะเราอยากทราบว่าตรงที่ท่านอยู่เนี่ยบรรยากาศเป็นยังไงเสียงเป็นยังไงนะคะถึงแม้เราไม่ได้มาเจอกันที่คณะมนุษยศาสตร์และสังคมศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยบูรพานะคะแต่ว่าในการที่เราเรียนหรือสอนออนไลน์ค่ะตรงนี้มันทำให้ขาดการมีปฏิสัมพันธ์การคอนเนคชันกันใช่ไหมคะกิจกรรมนี้ก็จะช่วยให้เราคอนเนคกับผู้เรียนได้ค่ะเราขอให้ทุกท่านใช้เวลานะคะประมาณ15 นาทีค่ะสอบถามได้นะคะเชิญค่ะ
So we will go from now until 2:55. And again, I turned off my presentation mode of my Google Slides because I'm going to walk through the task again from scratch while you all participate as well. And again, for those of you who are logging in and just don't have the opportunity to do the task right now, that's okay. Please do stay with us. And what I will try to do is fill the time while others are just making with some commentary to explain a little bit more of the benefits of this activity. Again, part of why I will be talking during the time is to fill the space for those of you who might get bored waiting for everybody to do the task. But also because there are a lot of reasons why these kinds of very simple tasks are actually quite impactful. And you know, when I began working with mobile devices, at first I wanted to do the most complex things. I wanted to do augmented reality, right? I thought, oh, there are amazing teaching opportunities with technology. I want to do the coolest, the most cool stuff immediately. And I'll tell you, I've done them. I work in virtual reality. I work with augmented reality. I do geo mapping, you know, using maps and, you know, placing histories and making tours, you know, online. Like I do a lot of very advanced stuff for a teacher, not for a technologist. But as a teacher, I take it pretty far. What I find is that even though those things sound really cool and exciting to me, they're not always the most relevant way to achieve the teaching goals of my class. And sometimes they require technologies that simply aren't affordable or accessible to all of my students. So rather than leaping into virtual reality right off the bat, I start with these incremental little modules that anybody can do. And what I hope is that by iteratively scaffolding one on the next, making them increasingly more complex, that I can bring more students along so that if there is a more elaborate digital project that I have in mind for my students, by the time we get there, we've already done all the little pieces. And you know, in the field of gaming pedagogy, right, using gamification or using games to teach or using the methodologies of games to teach, that's the same thing you do. Think of those of you who are video game players, think of how you get good at any game. First, there's a simple task. You learn to jump over something. Then you learn to jump higher. Then you learn to jump while a monster's chasing you with knives. Then you learn to do like flow through hoops, you know. Then you learn to like jump kick and kill the monster and grab the hoop. It's always iterative progress. And it's the level design of those games are very carefully orchestrated so that new players can start with almost no experience and slowly build their confidence and get curious about what they could do next. And that's why people get hooked on games. So when we use mobile devices as teachers, we're using that same theory. All I want on day one is for my students to record their voice. They can do it. When I teach in a face-to-face class, I have us do it during class time. I say, okay, everybody has a half an hour, go outside, take a picture, record your voice, come back, you know? And it doesn't take long for people to see that, oh, like this is okay, you know? And students who were uncomfortable hearing their own voice recorded, once they do it a couple times, it's easier later for the maybe digital storytelling I want them to do later. So I hope you'll be patient also with the fact that we're doing small, easy tasks at first, because this is how you can invite your students to come along for the ride without leaving anybody behind. So I'm talking a lot again, and I will pause, and I'm going to do this activity right in front of you, but I will mute my mic so that it's not too weird. So I just did 2 ambient sound recordings. The first one I described where I was because I forgot that wasn't the assignment. But sometimes it's fun to do that version too. So then I recorded again. And the second time I recorded my ambient sound, I was better at paying attention to what the distinctive sounds in this room are. So what I gravitated to was this air vent because it's making a whooshing sound. And as I did that, a couple of my colleagues were talking. So I heard like this human voice sound, which was great. And then I think I might have heard my colleague Ajahn Kwan giggle a little bit. So I'm hoping that in my recording, I got a little bit of the whoosh and a little bit of the quiet and then a little bit of this beautiful human, you know, presence. So I'm hoping I captured all of that on my recording. So I used my voice memo app to do that. And this is the free one that comes with my phone. When you record, it usually says like new recording number 39 or whatever. The 3 dots, the menu lets you name the recording. Excuse me. So I'm gonna rename my recording. Or maybe it won't work this time. Okay, it's not letting me rename my recording. That's okay. Oh, now it did. Okay. So I'm gonna name it library recording space. And on the instructions, I said to put your name first. So I just forgot. So I'm gonna put my name first, Brooke. So file naming conventions are a really important digital fluency. Notice if you teach a class that assigns papers, when you download the student papers, if they all say like essay number 1, you end up with 30 student papers on your desktop, all called essay number 1. And that's really annoying and difficult to manage. So by asking my students on the instructions to name their file, I'm teaching them a very important digital, basically digital literacy practice, but I'll call it also a digital fluency practice that will be useful for them in all of their classes. Even when they send a resume to somebody for a job, if that resume is titled resume, employers download it, it doesn't have their name, it gets lost. So little things like that can make a big difference. Okay, so I'm now forwarding the file to myself. I'm gonna mail it to myself. Again, on my phone, it means I click the 3 dots for menu and then share. I'm gonna email it to myself. For those of you at home who didn't have access to the Google document, but might want to give this a try, you can email it to me at hbhessler@gmail.com. And that address is, I'll bring it up again, right there on the screen. So again, if you'd like to share it with me, I will upload it to the Google folder. Rapa University has excellent bandwidth, so I am trusting the Wi-Fi will get it to me fast. While I'm waiting for the audio file to come, now I take my picture. And again, the assignment is to take a picture of the space where you did your ambient recording. So this is how you get to see this amazing setup I'm in. Didn't expect this, did ya? Are you comfortable being in the picture? Is that okay? Okay, always ask permission. The lights are making it hard to see you anyway, so you'll still be just shadowy, you know, strangers. I think I'll try it one more time, see if I can dim out the overhead lights a little bit. Yeah, a little bit better. So this way, you all get to see what I see when I'm sitting here. Because this is intimidating, y'all. Like, I'm just a teacher from California. I'm not a movie star. I have all these lights. It's so cool. Okay, so now I'm emailing myself the picture. So I click the picture, I click share, just like you do. And it might not be giving, sometimes when you send a picture, it asks you what file size you want. If it does, I would suggest going small just for this exercise so that you can do the work faster. And that's a good thing to tell your students also if you do this activity with them. Additionally, if you work in an asynchronous environment where you're doing this on a discussion board, oftentimes students will send the big files that come off their phone, like 3 meg files or even 2 or 1 meg files, can be really big on a discussion board in Moodle or Blackboard or any of those. So, and it can take over like the whole thread. So it can be a good practice in teaching these kinds of activities to let your students know what file size you would prefer for each activity. Usually for me, I say go small if it's a little fast, like makerspace moment, and then use big files, save those for like digital stories or other media where you're going to use, you know, close detail. Oh, so there it is. So this is where it asks whether you want, you can't see, whether you want small, medium, large, or actual size. I'm going to go small, only 30K, be a little bitty file, but it'll be perfect for this assignment. So now hopefully I've gotten all of that in my email. And again, if you would like to take a picture just where you are and send it to me at hbhessler@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat. Okay, so I've gone past 2:55, y'all. I was so excited to do this exercise with you that I exceeded my own deadline. So that means you get an extra 2 minutes. So what I'm doing right now is I'm downloading my image file. I don't have it showing on your screen, just because it's my email and that seemed like awkward. And again, you all are very welcome to email me full files if you'd like me to upload them for you. If not, you are not hurting my feelings. I know it has been a long day. Okay.
Excuse me, can I explain the word synchronous and asynchronous to our audience a little
Oh,
bit?
thank you.
When Dr. Brooks said synchronous teaching, it means the learning and the teaching happening at the real time, or we say live teaching, right? And asynchronous is when learning does not require real-time interaction. Students can access the material like video or any other materials on their preferred time or their own time. สองคำนี้นะคะ synchronous กับ asynchronous นะคะถ้าอาจารย์พูดว่า synchronous ก็คือการเรียนแบบสดนั่นเองนะคะที่ทุกคนมาเรียนพร้อมกันในเวลาที่เรานัดหมายกันแต่ถ้า asynchronous ก็อาจจะเป็นช่วงเวลาที่เราอาจจะเป็นอัปโหลดไฟล์งานไว้นะคะแล้วก็ให้นักเรียนเข้ามาเรียนได้เวลาที่เขาสะดวก
Thank you, John Kwan. She is teaching me to use more specific vocabulary, and it will take me a while. I so appreciate that. I speak too technically in my own classes sometimes too, and it's one of those things I want to get so much better at. I think, that's the thing about teaching. We never perfect it, and that's why it's such a brilliant career. You can spend your whole life learning to be a teacher, and what a gift that is. So as you can see, hopefully, as you can see, I'm using descriptive file names for my files. I just caught a typo, so that's why I'm trying to fix it. My laptop is actually several years old, and so the keys stick. So I'm not using fancy computers here. Okay, so we have a few. I'm going to show you this tiny picture of this is what it looks like for me right now. So for those of you who are like, why is she like, see how the big lights and all the things, it's very impressive and like, so now you have this image and sound of this space. And can you imagine what that would be like if you have students who are logging in from many different places and, wanting to connect with each other and with you, just like the class directory. This is a simple exercise. It's a little kooky, right? Like ambient sound. Who does that? Well, a lot of people do, like film directors do, but it's also a really great way to help people pay attention to their environments and see them differently. You know, I spent 2 weeks in one room in quarantine, and I had never turned on the television. Like, that was unexpected. And it was because I kept finding more things to look at. Birds would come, and the MRT would go by, and I would stand out on the balcony and look at all of these buildings and people going about their day. And it was amazing to me how abundant life is with information when you pay attention. And I think that's another really important lesson that we can extract from these kinds of simple exercises. It's a thing we can talk about with our students. You know, we're doing these tasks as a way to get to know our students, but also there are ways we can connect it to the learning that we're expecting in our class. So that is my transition to a little time to discuss, you know, what just happened. I'd love to invite you into small breakout rooms to talk about. Yes, we can. We have breakout rooms. Okay, I'm sorry. I get very excited when things work. Okay, so I would like to give you 10 minutes to talk to a couple of other colleagues about this activity. Now, I realize that very few people in our group did all of the steps of the activity, but that's okay. What I'm interested in is, what do you think about this kind of activity? So I would like you to be in a small group of 3 or 4 people and talk about these questions. What seemed to work well or not? What was surprisingly complicated? That question might be most relevant for the few of us who completed it in Google, but these other questions are directly applicable to anybody tuning in right now. So my questions are, how would these kinds of activities be engaging to your students? You know, would you do the class directory recording? Would you do the ambient, you know, sounds or sight activity? Why or why not? How might you do this activity differently? Are there things that prevented you from doing it? Or are you thinking, oh, I don't know, it just is too awkward or irrelevant? Like, again, this doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm really curious to know, like, what do you think? And in your discussion group, if you'll talk about those things, then when we come back, you can enter it into the chat, or we can have an oral conversation about, like, what are your opinions about this type of learning so far? And if there are things you wished we were doing that we haven't been doing, this is a really good time in your group to identify what those would be, because then we have another 45 minutes or so where we can do anything. So I have a plan for after the breakout discussion. You're in good hands, or we could pivot and address some other topics that are of interest to you. So it's open season on opportunities for more conversation. For right now, I'll go ahead and create the breakout rooms and invite you to discuss these questions. Yes. Okay. How many? 5? Is that enough? Okay, fine. I will do anything you say, anything you suggest. Okay, let's do that. That means math. So it means roughly 8 groups. Okay.
.เดี๋ยวอาจารย์บูธจะแบ่งกลุ่มให้เรานะคะเข้าไปในห้องย่อยนะคะแล้วเวลาเราเข้าไปในห้องย่อยเราก็
you're getting to see my breakout rooms. You know, that's really cool. So as we move into the breakout rooms, I just want to notice this because, you know, a lot of us are just learning how to use breakout rooms and Zoom. We are all teaching in different environments. Some of you are teaching in Zoom this coming semester, and learning to create breakout rooms can be a little bit intimidating at first. You don't want to get it wrong. Then all your students go away and they don't come back. So I love it that my sharing screen is showing you what it looks like behind the scenes. Okay, I really will stop talking. Let's take from now until 3:20 p.m. and I'll put that in broadcast and I will stop talking so that you can talk to your groups. So we have 1 minute remaining. Okay, we are back. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We will take a break in a few minutes, but I wanted to open up time for you to share any questions or observations that you might have come up with in your group. So please do speak up, or I have the chat open. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
From our group, we have a representative.
Yay!
Yes, Miss Game. Could you please share with us your idea, please? Hello.
Sorry, I'm can't open the camera.
Oh, that's fine. You don't have to turn on your camera.
Yeah, you could leave your camera off.
Okay, that's in the past that we discarding in room 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we think about it. Okay, hello?
Yes.
Yes, my mic have a problem. Okay, we think about if we have to take a picture, we can send in the line group. Maybe can make it easy for
that is,
yes.
That's a great idea. Line would be a perfect application for this. Are most of your students online? They use Line?
Yes, many people, they use Line.
Yes, you know, I should have thought of that for this activity. I use Line too. Now that I am in Thailand. Yes, you could absolutely use Line for this activity. And you know, in my own teaching, for years I used Facebook and with my students for my classes, and then my university said we needed to stop because of it was blurring the boundaries of our relationships with our students to interact with them so often on social media. So I stopped. And now on Facebook, I have many former students who are my friends, but not current ones. So I think that would be my only caution, would be to check with your program to, if you are doing this activity with students, to make sure that it is acceptable to use personal social media with them, or whether you would need a different a different group for that. Are there groups in line that are for like just professional interaction, or is it, yeah, maybe you could explain. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That is fine. Like Miss C Game said, everyone, I think almost everyone who has mobile phone, smartphones are using Line, and not only for personal communication, but for professional communication as well. Like of, I think 20 or 30 Line groups. We call Line groups.
Excellent.
At the same time. And for many schools, because of the COVID, where the classes have been migrated to other thing rather than on site, whether it's online, on demand, and they have the meaning that teachers delivering homebooks or textbooks or practice books to students' homes, and then the students were at home and then they return the books or the homework to the teachers. That's called on hand.
So you could have a group in line for your class.
Yes. We can try creating a Line group for today just for fun, because when Ajahn group is in Thailand, she learned how to use Line, and then actually she likes the emojis in Line. So.
Love the emoji.
Yes, yeah, it's kind of fun, and many teachers choose to use Line to communicate with students.
So absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. Yes, had I been thinking about along those lines, I would have used it for this activity. In my mind, I was trying to simulate what we might do like in a classroom, but I think using social media, if it's professionally acceptable, would be perfect. Thank you so much. I've written it down on my notebook for next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to share? Oh, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, I want to say thank you for.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that was a brilliant idea, because I was thinking about I have a Google Drive app on my phone, so I think uploading directly would be easier, but I listened to her and then, wow, that's brilliant and very simple but effective.
Yeah. So smart. Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to add a suggestion or a question in the chat? Then it's time for a short break. So it's 3:27. Let's take just a few minutes to really get out of your chair. I will do it. I'll try not to be too visually awkward, because it's supposed to look professional. But I encourage you to stand up. If you're still seated, you didn't know I was going to do this, but I also teach yoga, like for real. And so here are some exercises for our hands, for those of us who have been sitting a lot. So I encourage you to stand up. I'm sitting down just because I have this very expensive camera in front of me, so I don't want to ruin my shot. But here are some wonderful therapeutics for those of you who have been doing this all day. So we can clasp our hands together and make a fist, and then roll in one direction. I'm cracking. I hope it's not too loud. And the other way. Oh, so good. And then another one from our position, we can put the hands down and up and back and up. Do one of those. We could do eagle arms for those of you who are yogically inclined, like this or like this. And on an inhale, raise up and arch your back. And on an exhale, release Ah. And now other side. Inhale. And you can also do backs of palms of hands. So if you want to clasp, you can, but you could also just do that. Or give yourself a hug, which is maybe even better. Inhale, exhale, arch your back. Inhale forward, exhale, curve in. Oh, in it. And maybe hug on the other side. Inhale, exhale. Thank you. Okay, so let's return to our last 30 minutes of time together. We have other things we do with M-Learning. Again, we have 30 minutes, which is actually a spacious time to address anything else that has come up for you, including more ways to use social media. Definitely, if your students are all using social media and are comfortable interacting with you professionally, many of the things we're talking about today could be done and shared that way also. So next, I wanted to make sure I commented on this other category of mobile learning. So using mobile learning devices for data gathering and research. The first category that I mentioned earlier is data gathering about the learning experience itself. So a number of instructors use apps like Kahoot. Kahoot is one of many. These are polls that you can take place during class. I'm going to play the first part of a demo about it for just to give an overview. College students love this. Okay, so how I got into Kahoot was because I'm the director of the Writing Center at my college. And I asked my tutors, because Writing Center tutors know so much about effective teaching and learning. Think about it. These are students who help your students with their homework. So they hear what assignments are exciting, what assignments are boring. They get to watch and see how students are struggling with their homework. So college students who work as Writing Center tutors are keen observers of effective teaching in action. And I asked my tutors how I could do a better job of tutor training to make it more interactive. And they said, oh, Kahoot. So I have my Writing Center tutors use Kahoot to make little quizzes about things that they need to learn for tutoring. I also use it during class to ask students for feedback on how well they're understanding what we're learning. That's one example of a mobile app that you can use for this kind of interaction. Many universities use clickers and other mobile tools just as a way to pause in the middle of class and ask the students whether they're understanding a complex idea, whether they agree or disagree with a historical character or policy. So mobile apps are a way to capture learning as it's happening to see whether students understand or are paying attention or are disengaged. So it can be a great tool to tap into your students' level of interest and understanding. The second way that mobile apps can be great for data gathering is to invite students to bring them along when they're doing research. This is something I do with science teachers as well as humanities teachers. Definitely do it with oral history projects projects where we want our students to go out and get to know a community and record their experiences before they make a formal interview, assignment or do a formal interview project with people as they're getting better acquainted with their learning context. It's a way for them to pause and pay attention to the sights, the sounds, the navigation, to their own reactions. They can capture in a voice memo any trepidation, any uncomfortable feeling they're having as they're getting ready to do an assignment. It can capture all of those things the way you might in a written diary. So this is so using the video, audio, photography tools of the phone is also a way to invite our students to step away from their computer, go out into the world or even into their own household to interview people, have informal data gathering or formal data gathering out in the field, capture it in one place, and then assemble those artifacts for their research projects. Using those descriptive file naming conventions that we had them practice in the class directory, using the file name to keep track of their best photographs, their best audio recordings, makes it easier for them to find later. And it makes the process of assembling multimedia projects a lot more, I was going to say, not anxious. Sometimes students get overwhelmed by all the information they gather, and then they have trouble getting started with a project. So having them practice going out and then descriptively naming their best files and sharing those can be a really great practice. I'm going to share an example of a project that came from using a mobile device out in the field. This is a video from a digital humanities class I taught a few years ago. And I asked my students to select an issue that was really motivating them, something that an area they really wanted to make a difference. And this was in Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, geothermal fracking. So going into the ground to blow water into the ground as a way to release petroleum is it's a way to get natural resources, but it is also very damaging to nature. And so these students were worried about the damage to the environment. This student was a religion and social sciences major. She was the founder of the Amnesty International chapter at my previous university. Her partner was also a religion and philosophy major. So these are not classic reportage or like journalist students. They were just wanting to figure out how to do research on this topic. So I said, make it a good story. As many students do at the beginning of their research project, they were mostly just Googling ideas. They hadn't really gone out to really see the places that they were researching. And so I gave them a class period off. I said, take the afternoon off. The two of you as research partners, go find the thing you want to study and bring back a story to tell about what you've learned so far. Using just their phone, this is what they got. This is a 7-minute video. I'm going to only share the beginning where they explain their process.
So it's 11 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. We've been driving for about an hour now, looking at different sites. We're on a gravel road. Behind us, we're not totally sure what this is, but it looks like it's some kind of processing plant, maybe for natural gas, maybe a water plant. I'm not sure.
So we're a couple miles south of Glencoe, next to Highway 108, and this is, I'm not sure if it's a well they just started drilling, and then they're digging this big channel right here for a pipeline. So, yeah.
On a Wednesday morning in April around 9 a.m., Caleb and I drove north from Oklahoma City towards Stillwater, Oklahoma to look at some drilling and fracking sites. We had a hand-drawn paper map, our smartphones, and a physical map of Oklahoma we found stashed inside the door of Caleb's car. We were working on a project about fracking in Oklahoma, and we weren't really sure what we would find. Oklahoma is currently one of the largest producers of natural gas in the United States because of a recent boom in hydraulic fracturing.
Now, horizontal drilling. So now with one well, instead of drilling one hole where you presumably might get oil and gas from some radius around it, now you're going down and at a 90-degree angle, not a 90, but more or less. Now from one well, you're sending out multiple bores.
Okay. And I apologize for not having subtitles, but here's what matters to me as a teacher. At the beginning, they're both saying, I don't know. Like at the beginning, both the young woman and the young man are both like, they pulled over to the side of the road. They're standing there. They're in the place finally that they were supposed to be studying. And what they're saying is, I don't know what this is. Like, I don't know what I'm seeing. That was real progress for them as researchers. Next, we got to see images of the road where they were. They showed artifacts they used to begin their research. They brought their camera and recorded their conversation with their geology professor. And all of that made their research experience a story-worthy research experience. So those of you who attended the keynote this morning, you know, we were talking about how everything is a story and how everything can, well, the hero's journey motif is a very common and familiar one. So in this story, the student's mission was to have an adventure, you know, because research is exciting. All of us at this conference are here because we have spent many, many years studying questions that drive us bananas. We are compelled to learn more, discover more, and we want our students to have that same excitement. So sending students out to go see the things they're talking about is a way to get them in the story and thinking about what they know, what they don't know, and who they need to ask or what they need to see to learn more. So the message of that video example is mostly about how it is that using mobile technology can help us get our students to research at a different level, you know, get them to ask questions that they genuinely are curious about, get them to notice how like funny and overwhelming it is to be in the middle of the country and actually not know what you're looking for. You know, it's funny, it's embarrassing, it's complicated, but it's all of those emotions that they would not be having if they were just Googling answers to random questions. So I think that's really the gift of sending our students out to do research with a device. It captures them in those informal, funny, nerve-wracking, scary, you know, moments that they might not think should be part of research, but that all of us know actually is a lot like research. It's just that usually when we're feeling those emotions as teachers or as researchers, we're alone. We're in our little place doing it by ourselves. And I think that's another reason why sometimes we forget to bring the drama, the excitement of research into our classes, because we forget like, oh yeah, I'm really excited about this topic. And I can't just tell my students how excited I am and how excited they should be. I need to give them some kind of disorienting dilemma that they have to resolve or engage with on their own so that they can come back and tell the story and get questions and answers and proceed with their research. So that is the lesson of that example. Okay, finally, the last category of mobile learning I wanted to share with you is this diversification of the learning experience that many of us pick up the mobile device for in the first place. Like when I talked about using maps or virtual reality or all these amazing cool things you can, do on the internet or do through game technologies. It's all really cool. But as a teacher, not a professional technologist, it's a big lift for me to plan a whole class where that will happen and they learn the things they're actually there for. And so for me, I love these incremental projects that can take us from one use of technology to the next and the next. And the last example I wanted to share for, second to last example I wanted to share for diversifying learning is something I call metaphorical thinking. And I think in the interest of time, I won't ask you to do this activity, but I have a place for it if you want to. What I ask people to do is to take an object I'll show you the example. In our Google folder, in case you want to do this. So here's our June 18th workshop activity folder. Exercise 3, metaphorical thinking. The idea, especially for all of you in the humanities, we use metaphor for everything, especially those of us who work with language, but in all the humanities, metaphorical ideas. And by metaphor, I simply mean seeing something in terms of something else. Making those connections between two things can be a powerful way for our students and ourselves to think in different ways. I'll show you an example. Our making activity is you snap a photo of an object, any object, anywhere, object, and then you ask yourself, how am I like this thing? And how am I not like this thing? I'll do it right now. How am I like this water bottle? I am fluid. I am filled with life and energy. How am I not like this object? I am not bound by one container, even though I have a body, arguably. I think my spirit goes far beyond a container that you could see. So I am like this water bottle and that I have like a fluid, dynamic spirit. I am not like this water bottle because I think it's too small for my big heart. Just like that, you pick any object, say how you're like it, how are you not like it? Here's an example in our Google slide where you could take a picture of your object. Here are my eyeglasses. Here is how I'm like my eyeglasses. Here I am not like my eyeglasses. It's a metaphor. I'm like it or I'm not like it. In the field of rhetoric studies, for those of you who are rhetoricians, we might call the metaphor how I am like my eyeglasses or how I am my eyeglasses. And irony is how I am not like my eyeglasses. Anyway, that type of simple image text combo could also be a video where you take a video and say, here's my object, here's how I'm like it, here is how I'm not like it. And what you do with that information is you invite your students to interview each other to get more information, or maybe it becomes a story, a narrative, a writing activity, whatever. It's a way for them to use the phone to do the thing. The example I want to share from our presentation though, is a video that I asked a student to make. So back when we were in a face-to-face classroom, I taught at 8 in the morning. Students, especially art students at an art and design school, they work in the studio until 4 in the morning. They don't want to come to class at 8 in the morning. Now, so you're in this space where you're thinking, how do I motivate my students? So sometimes I would take them outside I would say, go outside, find a plant, take a picture of the plant, and pick a plant, any plant. How am I like this flower? How am I not like this flower? So it's a simple question with very complicated, potentially answers, very potentially complicated answers. It can give them a moment to pause and reflect in ways that can take them deeper. And they love that. You can also ask them to talk about it later. So now that I'm teaching all in a virtual space, I still want my students to get up and out. I want them to get fresh air, even if it's just on the balcony. I want them outside living life and then come back in my classroom energized, right? So this nature writing version of the same activity that is in our Google folder is the same thing. I say, find a plant, any plant, and tell me, how are you like it? How are you not like it? In this example, I also, after they take their photo and their write their narrative, I then ask them to make a short digital story about it, which in this case is just a video using the same picture and audio file. It's a very simple video project that I use to scaffold the next more complex one. But I think you'll enjoy hearing my students' answer to the question. No? No audio? Ah, oh, okay. I'll try on sharing. Well, I'll see if I have audio sharing again. I thought I did. Share sound is on. Oh. So sorry guys, my audio is on, but it's not.
I don't know why from my screen it still shows from video, the last video that we show about fracking.
Oh, let me try that. Oh, but I closed that. I can launch it from here, see if that helps. Okay. Stop share. So now share again. Okay. Reboot. The classic move. Okay.
And while we are waiting for Ajahn Group to get the video back, I like to say something which can be very funny. You know that we are using the virtual background. If you have seen the picture I posted earlier, Ajahn Group is sitting in front of a green screen. So when you were holding the water bottle, it doesn't show. So I post in the chat that Dr. Group is holding the water bottle. But I think people in the Facebook Live, they can see that you were holding, and that's so cute. You can watch the video later.
I will never watch this video. I might. Oh my goodness, thank you. I know you guys, thank you for your patience. It's technology, right? We experiment because it's scary and that gets us excited. And the benefits usually outweigh the sweat. I'll try playing. I'll try it again.
I found it on the land next to the D1 classroom. I think it was a clover. I'm not sure.
You're not hearing his voice. It's tragic because he has such a beautiful voice, but my students always subtitle their projects now. So it's short. I will play it and you can read what he says. It's still beautiful, but I would prefer that you hear his voice. Oh, I could also share the link in the chat. So I'll play it on my screen, but I encourage you, if you would, if you can, to play this on your own. It's a very short, like a minute and a half. And it's a beautiful voice. So here is maybe not the audio, but
Sure, if it's a clover, but it's more like a name weed. The whole plant is made up of two parts. The first part is the four leaves at the bottom. It has a bright green color, and it has some dirt and little holes where insects have eaten. The second part is the two leaves in the middle. The two leaves are darker than the bottom, and the leaves are very tender and symmetrical. I feel like I am the alien plant. Almost everyone knows that clover represents luck, but most of the world is made up of four-leaf clover. The four-leaf clover is common plant found everywhere. All the land represents the earth, and people are like the four-leaf clover. Very few people become successful in every field, just like a very few clovers. Most people in the world are just ordinary people, just like the common four-leaf clover. But in this world, there are some people like this variant of the four-leaf clover. They want to be successful and want to be different. I want to be different too, but I don't want to be like anyone else. I want to be different, just like the mutant four-leaf clover.
So there we go. So that's Percy, a student of mine. The last student I had before, before switching to online. So please do listen to his voice. But notice how his attention to detail, he describes specifically what he saw. He was practicing his skills of discernment, of keen observation of data that would be relevant in other activities to follow. And also he's doing some personal reflection that's helping me get to know him and what he cares about. So as we prepare to close our workshop, I have one last invitation to you to please do check out the Google folder with these activities in case you might like to use them with your students, perhaps through Line or some other tool that would be great for you. I've also shared as the fourth folder item, a map. Many of us who use mobile devices use them for mapping projects. And I've included an example of a story map. Oh, you know what I think I'll do? I won't play this video. I'll just show you, if you were to take the incremental steps we've done so far in this workshop and then apply them to something like iMaps or any of these mapping tools that can also be useful with our mobile devices, you could end up creating something using, say, ArcGIS or any of the Google Map or other mapping resources online to give people an opportunity to pin places of interest to themselves and then tell stories about them. So as a snapshot of that type of project, you could ask your students to pin their location on a map and then capture the sight, sound, observations, again with their mobile app, as still images, audio or typed, or as videos, and pin their research or their story to a common map that you could share in your virtual class. So that was a very fast description of the last type of project that you could explore from today's workshop. And I have a micro making activity for you to pin your location inside that same Google document to share. But those were the main things I wanted to share with you today. We have 2 whole minutes left in our session. I will stick around if you would like to ask questions. Please do share comments or ideas in the chat. And And thank you for sharing this time with me. But I'll open it up now for any final thoughts from the group.
Thank you very much, Ajahn Brooke. Now, everyone, we have a couple minutes left, right? 2 minutes. Okay, so if you like to share your thoughts, your ideas, it can be just comment or a thank you note, anything. You are all welcome to talk to us, talk to Ajahn Brooke. Okay, this will be the last session for our conference, and this is a golden opportunity, I would say, for you to interact with Ajahn Brooke. Okay, our Dr. Brooke Hessler. And personally, I really like the idea of the simplicity, starting from something that is not so complicated. Anyone can use it and access it, and the idea of turning ourselves from users into makers and teach our students to become makers as well. And then they can use the technology, mobile technology, with our guidance, so that they can learn how to research and learn more about things around them. I really like the video you share about the fracking, because yes, as I said, it starts from I'm not sure what it is, what they are doing, but in the end, they became like caring about the things around them, making them more mindful about their neighborhood, their context, and that from there they can learn on their own, right? And on anything that they are interested, because what I have learned from many people and from my students these days that we rarely know what they are interested in, and sometimes we just take it for granted what we want them to know, but we rarely know what they really want to know or to learn. So that gives them autonomy and to be responsible for their own learning experience.
As usual, you said it better than I could have. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? You can just unmute yourself and say something. It doesn't have to be questions. It can be probably from your experience from today's session or in the last 2 days. Okay, for our conference, what you like, what you think we can do better, what would be future topics for our workshop. If we can invite Dr. Brooke again to deliver a workshop from California. And before I forget, again, as usual, we love pictures. And this is our last session for the conference, so I cannot miss this. So if you feel free to turn on your camera, and now we have 30 people who are very committed to this workshop and stay with us until the end. I know that it has been long 2 days conference, right? And thank you very much for you care, okay, to be with us, okay. Or you can send us some messages via chat. Okay? We start to have some pictures, some chat in the box. So feel free to turn on your camera for a moment, please. This is our final moment together at the 14th National and the first International Conference on Humanities and Social Sciences. And I think we can flourish from learning from each other as a community of practice. And we learn from each other, and we got some brilliant ideas from the breakout room as well. So I will stop talking for a moment so that our team can take some snapshot of the participants and everyone who are very committed here. Thank you very much for staying with us until the end of our conference. Thank you very much, everyone, again, and thank you very much, our Dr. Hessler, or our Ajahn Group, for staying with us. And if you have not joined our previous sessions before, Dr. Brooke has traveled from San Francisco, California, and to be quarantined for 15 days. That's why she said 2 weeks in the same room. To be with us physically here today at the main library, Burapha University, and for this conference. And she's going back to the States on Monday. So we really appreciate her commitment and her kindness. And I see that the Dean is here with us in the Zoom, right, Ajahn Suchada? Yeah. Would you like to say a few words? And please unmute yourself. Thank you.
On behalf of the faculties of humanities and social sciences, again, I couldn't thank enough for your contributions, from the Husserl English Writing Center and went through the keynote address, on the first day, and this one, a special workshop again. You have done a lot. So everyone, I strongly believe that Dr. Brooke Hessler deserves a big loud applause.
Aww.
Okay, so until then, I believe that next year we will see each other again. And last but not least, I would like to thank all the involved people, who make this conference possible, especially for everybody. I believe also that you agree with me that big thanks should go to all the MC, Ajahn Dr. Sutrapo, and Ajahn Dr. Panpilat, and everyone involved here. So you deserve a big round of applause as well. Okay, so I would like to take this opportunity again to thank all the participants. Okay, without you, this conference will not be possible as well. I would like to take this opportunity to close our 14th national and the first international conference. Until then, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dean, and thank you, everyone. Now we have to say goodbye from Burapha University. Hopefully we can see you again next year, post-COVID, finger crossed. Thank you very much and goodbye, everyone.